I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the science fiction exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel. First contact in the void. Commander Marcus Drake had seen strange things during his 15 years with the Lunar Security Force, but nothing quite prepared him for the massive crystalline structure now pulsing with otherworldly light before him. The object hadn't been there during his last patrol of the Mare Tranquillitatis, and its sudden appearance sent warning bells ringing through his mind. "Base Command, are you seeing this?" Drake's voice echoed in his helmet as he approached the formation. Static answered him. He checked his comm system, fully functional but no signal. That was impossible. The quantum relay network never failed. The structure rose 30 meters into the starlit void, its surface a maze of geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Drake's suit sensors were going haywire, detecting energy signatures unlike anything in their database. He took another step forward, and the crystals responded, their glow intensifying. "Fascinating, isn't it?" The voice that filled his helmet was deep, resonant, and definitely not human. Drake spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for his magnetic pulse rifle. What he saw made him freeze. A creature that could only be described as a dragon hovered before him, its body covered in scales that mimicked the night sky. Stars seemed to move beneath its surface, and its eyes held the same shifting patterns as the crystal structure. It was massive, easily the size of a small shuttle, yet it moved with impossible grace in the low gravity. "I am Nyxis," the dragon said, settling onto the lunar surface. "And you, Commander Marcus Drake, are the first human to witness the awakening." Drake's training kicked in. "How do you know my name? What awakening?" "I know many things about your kind," Nyxis replied, her tail creating graceful patterns in the lunar dust. "I have watched your species grow from your first tentative steps into space. But now," she looked up toward Earth, and Drake followed her gaze. His heart stopped. The familiar blue marble of Earth hung in the void, but something was wrong. The planet's surface was dark, not a single city light visible. It was as if human civilization had been wiped away in an instant. "What happened?" Drake demanded, his voice cracking. "What did you do?" "I did nothing," Nyxis said softly. "They came just as we feared they would. The Void Makers have finally found your world." Drake's mind raced. He had over 1,000 people in cryogenic stasis at Outpost Omega, his classified research base just over the horizon. If Earth was truly gone, they might be all that was left of humanity. "There's more to this than you're telling me," Drake said, studying the dragon's otherworldly features. "Why are you really here?" Nyxis's scales rippled with starlight. "Because, Commander, your species was never meant to face this alone. My kind has guarded the galaxies since the first stars burned. We are the Stellar Wardians, and Earth was under our protection until something went wrong." The crystal structure pulsed again, more urgently this time. Drake's suit sensors detected a massive energy spike building beneath the lunar surface. "The awakening has begun," Nyxis said, rising to her full height. "Commander Drake, you must make a choice. You can return to your outpost and wait for the end, or you can help me activate the ancient defenses that lie beneath this moon's surface. Your species may be dark, but they are not gone. Not yet." Drake looked back at Earth, at the darkness that had swallowed his home. He thought of the 1,000 souls sleeping in Outpost Omega, unaware that they might be the last of their kind. His jaw set with determination. "Tell me everything," he said. "And make it quick. If those people really are alive up there, we don't have much time." Nyxis's eyes gleamed with approval. "Then follow me, Commander. It's time you learned why your species was chosen, and why the Void Makers fear what humanity might become." The crystal structure began to sink into the lunar surface, revealing a massive doorway that led into the moon's depths. As Drake followed Nyxis into the ancient facility, he couldn't help but feel that humanity's true story was just beginning. The facility's entrance sealed behind them, and Drake found himself in a vast chamber that defied explanation. The walls were alive with the same crystalline technology they'd seen outside, but here it formed intricate patterns that his mind struggled to comprehend. His suit systems began downloading massive amounts of data, star charts and equations that seemed to defy known physics. "Welcome," Nyxis said, her voice echoing in the chamber, "to humanity's inheritance. Secrets beneath the regolith." Commander Drake's boots echoed against crystalline floors as he followed Nyxis deeper into the lunar facility. The walls pulsed with living light, responding to their presence like a vast, conscious entity. His suit's computer was still trying to process the astronomical data flooding its systems, equations that seemed to describe the very fabric of space-time itself. "Your species was never meant to advance so quickly," Nyxis said, her starlit scales casting dancing shadows on the walls. "The Void Makers saw your potential and moved against you centuries before we anticipated. We had to accelerate our plans." Drake studied a wall of shifting symbols. "These aren't just decorative, are they? They're some kind of language." "The universal script," Nyxis confirmed. "The mathematics of creation itself. Your scientists have glimpsed fragments of it in your quantum theories, but this," she gestured with a wing, "this is the complete text." They entered a vast circular chamber that took Drake's breath away. A holographic representation of the Milky Way galaxy floated in the center, but it wasn't like any star map he'd ever seen. Countless lines of energy connected the stars, forming a complex web of light that pulsed with purpose. "The dragon lines," Nyxis explained. "The pathways we use to maintain balance in the galaxy, or at least we did until the Void Makers began severing them." Drake approached the hologram, noticing that many of the lines were indeed broken, their ends fraying like torn cosmic threads. "And Earth, where does it fit in all this?" Nyxis touched the hologram with her tail, and it zoomed in on their solar system. Earth appeared, but it was surrounded by a complex geometric pattern that Drake had never seen in any astronomical survey. "Your planet sits at a crucial nexus of dragon lines," Nyxis said, "a focal point of cosmic energy that the Void Makers have coveted for millennia. We chose your species to be its guardians, seeding your evolution with certain capabilities." Drake's mind raced. "The quantum consciousness experiments at Outpost Omega, the unexplainable results we've been getting, that was you. Your people were beginning to access their true potential," Nyxis confirmed. "The ability to manipulate the dragon lines directly. The Void Makers could not allow that to happen." A distant rumble shook the facility, and new data flashed across Drake's helmet display. "Energy spike detected," he reported. "Something's happening on the surface." Nyxis's eyes narrowed. "They're here. The Void Makers move faster than we anticipated." She turned to face him fully. "Commander, there's something you need to see before they breach this facility." She led him through a series of twisting corridors to a smaller chamber. Inside, Drake found something that made his heart skip a beat. A wall of stasis pods, each containing what appeared to be a human figure, but not quite. Their bodies were marked with the same geometric patterns he'd seen in the hologram, their skin seeming to shimmer with starlight. "The first Guardians," Nyxis said softly. "Your ancestors, Commander, the ones we first gifted with the power to protect the dragon lines. They've been waiting here for millennia, preserved until they were needed again." Drake approached one of the pods, wiping away ancient dust. The face inside could have been human, except for the constellation-like patterns that swirled beneath their skin. "Why show me this now?" "Because," Nyxis said, "awakening them requires a direct descendant, and your genetic tests at Outpost Omega revealed something fascinating. You carry their bloodline." Another tremor shook the facility, stronger this time. Warning lights began pulsing along the walls. "The Void Makers are breaching the outer defenses," Nyxis announced. "We have minutes at most. Commander Drake, you must make another choice. You can awaken the first Guardians, but doing so will change you. The power in your blood will fully activate, transforming you into something beyond human." Drake looked at the sleeping figures, then thought of the 1,000 souls in cryostasis at his outpost, and the billions who might still be alive but trapped on the darkened Earth. "What happens if I don't?" "Then the Void Makers will claim the dragon lines, and reality itself will begin to unravel. Your universe will be consumed by chaos, remade in their image." Drake removed his helmet, the facility's ancient life support systems providing him with breathable air. What do I need to do? Nyxis touched a crystalline panel with her claw and it transformed into a control interface. Place your hand here. Your genetic signature will begin the awakening process. But be warned, there will be no going back to what you were before. The facility shuddered again. Through his suit sensors, Drake detected massive energy signatures descending from lunar orbit. The Void Makers were coming in force. He looked at his reflection in the stasis pod's surface, wondering if this would be the last time he saw himself as purely human. Then he thought of Earth, dark and silent above them, and knew there was only one choice. Drake placed his hand on the crystal panel. Immediately, geometric patterns of light began spreading up his arm, burning like starfire in his veins. As consciousness began to fade, he heard Nyxis's voice. "Welcome home, Guardian. It's time to remember who you truly are. Quantum Bridge." Commander Drake awoke to a world transformed. His vision had changed. He could see the dragon lines now, threads of cosmic energy weaving through reality itself. They pulsed and flowed around him like rivers of starlight, and he could feel them responding to his presence. The first Guardians stood in a circle around him, their bodies radiating the same otherworldly power that now coursed through his veins. They were tall, ethereal beings with features that blended human and stellar aspects. Their skin shimmered with constellations, and their eyes held the depth of galaxies. "Welcome, brother," one of them said in a voice that seemed to resonate with the facility itself. "I am Helios, first of the Guardians. We have slept long, waiting for one of our bloodline to return." Drake tried to stand, marveling at how his body felt both lighter and more powerful. Geometric patterns of light shifted beneath his skin, matching the ancient symbols on the facility's walls. "The Void Makers, they're breaking in." "Yes," Nyxis said, her massive form coiled protectively around the chamber. "But now we have a chance. The quantum bridge must be activated." "The bridge to where?" Drake asked, though part of him already knew the answer. The new knowledge flowing through his transformed consciousness was overwhelming, generations of hidden history unfolding in his mind. Helios gestured, and the chamber's walls became transparent, revealing a vast mechanical structure that dwarfed anything Drake had seen before. It was a massive ring of crystalline technology, ancient beyond comprehension, pulsing with the same energy that flowed through the dragon lines. "To Earth," Helios explained. "When we foresaw the coming of the Void Makers, we did not leave humanity defenseless. Selected groups were evacuated through quantum gates, hidden in pocket dimensions where the Void Makers cannot reach. Your people at Outpost Omega were not chosen by chance, Commander." A thunderous impact shook the facility. Through his enhanced senses, Drake could feel the Void Maker's presence, vast, cold entities that moved through space like living holes in reality, consuming everything they touched. "The bridge requires all of us," another Guardian said, her voice like distant wind chimes. "The power of the dragon lines, channeled through our combined consciousness, can tear open a path through the quantum foam itself." Drake thought of his people in cryostasis. "Can we get to Outpost Omega first? There are 1,000 lives." "Already done," Nyxis interrupted. "While you transformed, I dispatched others of my kind. Your people are being transported here through the maintenance tunnels. They will arrive shortly." As if on cue, a section of the wall irised open, and Drake saw them. Hundreds of cryogenic pods being guided by more dragons, each one unique in its stellar patterning. His people, the last free humans in the solar system, all gathered in humanity's most ancient redoubt. "Time grows short," Helios warned. "The Void Makers have breached the outer defenses. We must activate the bridge now." The Guardians moved into position around the quantum ring, their bodies beginning to glow with concentrated stellar energy. Drake took his place among them, instinctively knowing what to do. Nyxis and her kin arranged themselves in a larger circle, their wings spread wide. "Focus on the dragon lines," Helios instructed. "Feel their flow, their connection to all things. We are the conduits through which their power flows." Drake closed his eyes, but he could still see everything. The cosmic web of energy, the approaching darkness of the Void Makers, the sleeping humans who represented Earth's last hope. He reached out with his newfound senses and touched the dragon lines. Power surged through him, raw and ancient. The quantum ring began to spin, faster and faster, its crystalline surface blazing with light. In his mind's eye, Drake could see the pocket dimension where Earth's survivors had been hidden, millions of people, preserved in stasis, waiting for this moment. The Void Makers struck again, and this time the facility's inner walls began to crack. Through the breaches, Drake caught glimpses of them. Massive shapes of living darkness, their forms defying comprehension, reaching out with tendrils of pure entropy. Now, Helios commanded, channel everything through the ring, open the bridge. Drake felt the dragon lines respond, their energy coursing through him like liquid fire. The quantum ring erupted with light, and reality itself began to tear open at its center. Through the growing portal, he could see another place, vast chambers filled with stasis pods, each containing a human life preserved from the Void Maker's attack. But the bridge was unstable. The Void Maker's presence was disrupting the dragon lines, making it harder to maintain the connection. Drake pushed harder, drawing on reserves of power he didn't know he had. His transformed body burned with stellar fire as he fought to keep the portal open. "The evacuees," he gasped. "How many?" "Millions," Nyxis answered, her own power adding to the bridge's stability. "The best and brightest of your species, preserved with knowledge and technology that will be crucial for the coming war. But we must hold the bridge long enough to bring them through." Through the growing breach in the facility's walls, the first Void Maker began to emerge, a massive entity of darkness that devoured light itself. The sight of it should have driven him mad, but Drake's transformed mind could comprehend its true nature now. And he knew, with sudden clarity, that humanity's greatest battle was about to begin. Legacy of the Star Dragons. The Void Maker's presence bent reality around it, distorting the dragon lines like a cosmic wound. Drake could see its true form now, a living contradiction, a piece of uncreation that never should have existed in our universe. But even as horror threatened to overwhelm him, his transformed consciousness recognized something else. Patterns within its chaos, weaknesses in its seemingly invincible form. "The bridge is holding," Helios called out, his voice strained as stellar energy coursed through the chamber. Through the quantum portal, the first groups of evacuees were beginning to emerge, stasis pods containing thousands of Earth's survivors, preserved at the moment of the Void Maker's attack. Nyxis launched herself at the encroaching entity, her stellar-scaled body blazing with concentrated starlight. "Focus on the evacuation. We will hold them back." Other dragons joined her, their combined power creating a barrier of pure energy between the Void Makers and the quantum bridge. But Drake could see the toll it was taking on them. Each blast of void energy that they absorbed left temporary holes in their stellar scales, like tiny deaths in the fabric of space itself. "There's something you need to understand," one of the Guardians said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "About why they fear us so much." Her name was Aurora, and her eyes held the light of ancient stars. "Show him, Nyxis, while we still have time." The dragon's consciousness touched Drake's mind, and suddenly he was experiencing memories that weren't his own, the history of a war that had raged since the beginning of time itself. He saw the universe as it had been at its birth, when the dragon lines were first formed in the cooling aftermath of creation. The star dragons had emerged then, born from the first light, guardians of the cosmic web that held reality together. For eons they had maintained the balance, ensuring that life could flourish in the spaces between stars. But the Void Makers had come from elsewhere, a place beyond creation where the laws of physics held no meaning. They saw the ordered universe as an aberration, a flaw in the endless chaos that they called home, and they sought to correct it, to return everything to the void from which it had emerged. "We couldn't stop them alone," Nyxis's voice echoed in his mind. "We needed something more, beings who could adapt, who could take chaos and forge it into new forms of order. We needed humans." The vision shifted, and Drake saw his own ancestors, the first Guardians, being transformed by the dragon's power. Humanity had been chosen not just for their potential, but for their unique ability to exist between order and chaos, to understand both creation and entropy. The dragon lines respond to human consciousness in ways we never anticipated, Aurora explained, her power still focused on maintaining the bridge. You don't just use them. You change them, improve them, create new patterns we never imagined possible. A massive blast of void energy shook the facility, and Drake saw one of the dragons fall, its stellar body dimming like a dying sun. The Void Makers were pressing harder, sensing their chance to destroy humanity's last hope. The evacuees, Drake gasped, his own power straining to maintain the bridge. How many more? Millions still wait on the other side, Helios answered. Scientists, artists, dreamers, all those who might help rebuild, but the Void Makers know this. They'll throw everything they have at us now. Through the quantum bridge, Drake could see them, endless chambers of stasis pods, each containing a human life preserved at the moment of Earth's fall. But he could also see void energy beginning to seep through, threatening to corrupt the pocket dimension itself. Nyxis landed beside him, her scales damaged but still gleaming. There's one more thing you need to know, Commander, about why you specifically were chosen. She touched her snout to his forehead, and one final vision filled his mind. His own genetic code, but written in the same geometric patterns that covered the facility's walls. Within his DNA was a sequence that exactly matched the quantum mathematics of the dragon lines themselves. You're not just a guardian, Nyxis said softly. You're a nexus point, a human being who can rewrite the dragon lines themselves. That's what the Void Makers sensed in Earth's population. Others like you waiting to be awakened. That's why they struck when they did. Drake looked at his transformed body, seeing the patterns of light that flowed beneath his skin in a new way. They weren't just decorative. They were mathematical formulas, equations that could reshape reality itself. Then we use that, he said, a plan forming in his awakened mind. We don't just evacuate Earth's survivors, we give them back their home. The Void Makers surged forward again, their darkness eating through the dragon's defenses. But Drake stood straighter, cosmic power burning in his veins. He understood now, truly understood, why humanity had been chosen. They weren't just refugees to be saved. They were the universe's answer to chaos itself. Hold the bridge, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of stars. It's time to show the Void Makers why they were right to fear us. Reclamation. Drake stood at the center of converging dragon lines, cosmic energy flowing through him like a living star. Around him, the quantum bridge hummed with power, still channeling survivors through from the pocket dimension. But time was running out. The Void Maker's presence was growing stronger, their entropy eating away at the fabric of reality itself. What you're suggesting is impossible, Helios warned, his ancient eyes fixed on Drake. Even if you could rewrite the dragon lines, directing that much power could tear you apart. Everything's impossible until someone does it, Drake replied, watching as another wave of void energy crashed against the dragon's defensive barrier. Nyxis, you said humans could create new patterns in the lines. Show me how. The dragon's consciousness merged with his, and suddenly Drake could see them. Not just the existing dragon lines, but the spaces between them, the potential for new connections. His transformed mind began to understand the mathematical principles that governed reality itself. The Void Makers didn't just darken Earth, he said, his voice resonating with newfound knowledge. They shifted it partially into their realm, but if we can establish new dragon lines, we could pull it back, Aurora finished, her eyes widening. Use their own connection to our universe against them. Another blast rocked the facility. Through the quantum bridge, Drake could see void tendrils beginning to corrupt the pocket dimension. They had minutes at most before everything was lost. I need every guardian, Drake commanded, his plan crystallizing. Every dragon, we're not just evacuating Earth's people, we're taking back their home. The first guardians moved into position around him, their bodies glowing with stellar fire. The star dragons formed a larger circle, their wings spread wide, scales blazing with the light of ancient suns. Through their combined consciousness, Drake could feel the power building, Not just the existing dragon lines, but the potential for something new. He reached out with his transformed senses, finding the quantum mathematics that define the boundaries between realities. The Void Makers had used these same principles to shift Earth into their realm. Now, he would use them to bring it back. There, he called out, his mind tracing new patterns in the cosmic web. The lines aren't just paths, they're anchors. We can use them to define what belongs in our reality. His consciousness expanded, touching the dark Earth above them. He could feel the void energy that had corrupted it, the entropy that had swallowed human civilization. But underneath that darkness, the planet still lived, and more importantly, it remembered what it was supposed to be. Drake began to write new equations into reality itself, his transformed DNA resonating with the quantum mathematics of creation. The dragon lines responded, forming new connections, weaving a pattern that had never existed before. The Void Makers sensed what he was doing. They surged forward with renewed fury, their darkness threatening to overwhelm the facility's last defenses. But Drake didn't stop, couldn't stop. The equations were taking shape, becoming something even the first Guardians had never imagined. "The bridge," someone shouted. "It's destabilizing." Drake looked through the portal and saw the pocket dimension beginning to collapse. Millions of lives still waited to be evacuated, but there was no time unless. "Change of plans," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of his decision. "We're not just creating new dragon lines, we're making a new bridge big enough for everything." Nyxus's consciousness touched his. "Drake, the power required is already here," he finished. "In us, in all of us. The Void Makers were right to fear humans, but not because we could destroy them, because we could do this." Drake released everything, all the power of his transformation, all the knowledge of his awakened consciousness, all the potential that had lain dormant in his genes. The dragon lines responded, not just connecting but multiplying, creating a vast web of new pathways. Reality shuddered. The quantum bridge expanded, growing from a portal into something much larger, a reconstruction of space-time itself. Through it, Drake could see not just the pocket dimension, but Earth too, still wrapped in void energy. "Now," he commanded, "everyone together." The Guardians and Dragons poured their power into his equation. The new dragon lines blazed with impossible light, forming connections that bypassed the normal laws of physics. In that moment, Drake understood what humanity's true potential had always been, not to fight chaos, but to reshape it into new forms of order. The void energy around Earth began to shift, drawn into the new pattern of dragon lines. The darkness that had swallowed human civilization started to recede, pulled back into the space between realities where it belonged. And through the expanded bridge, the evacuees began to emerge, not into the lunar facility, but directly onto their homeworld. The Void Makers screamed, a sound that existed in no physical spectrum. Their grip on Earth was failing, their carefully crafted entropy being transformed into something else, something neither chaos nor order, but something uniquely human. Drake felt his consciousness stretching to its limit, his transformed body struggling to channel so much power. But he could also feel something else, the awakening of others like him. Humans across Earth, their dormant potential activated by the new dragon lines, beginning to understand their role in the universe. "They're retreating," Helios called out. The Void Makers were pulling back, their darkness receding from the solar system itself. They had finally encountered something they couldn't corrupt, humanity's ability to take chaos and make it into something new. As the last of the void energy dissipated, Drake saw Earth transforming. Cities reappeared, but changed, human civilization reborn with the knowledge of its true heritage. The dragon lines he had created pulsed with life, connecting humanity to the cosmic web in ways that had never been possible before. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice weak but satisfied. Nyxus landed beside him, her scales reflecting the light of the reborn Earth. "Now, Commander Drake, your species takes its place among the stars. The Void Makers will return one day, but they'll find something very different waiting for them." Drake looked up at his transformed homeworld, where millions of awakening humans were beginning to understand their new reality. The war wasn't over. It might never be over. But for the first time, the universe had something the Void Makers couldn't predict: humanity's endless capacity for change. "Well then," he said, smiling as new dragon lines continued to form in the sky above, "we'd better get started."